travel the world with these flight prices? Okay. Hey, what's up you guys? It's Avery and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who have never been here before, welcome. Glad you're here. So I don't know about y'all, but recently the travel bug has bitten me, okay? I've been bit. But I don't know if y'all have hopped on Google Flights recently, but the prices for these flights literally to anywhere in the world are insane right now. And so I don't know about you guys, but I don't just have cash to be dropping on a $2,000 flight. So what's the next best thing? Reading. Hear me out. I love to read books that take place in other countries or in cool destinations because it kind of feels like you're there and like you're experiencing that place without actually having to leave. Hence the title, Books You Can Read to Travel the World Without Actually Leaving Your Bed. In this video, I have 6 books that I'm going to talk about, and each of them takes place in a specific country or city, and there's also one that takes place in multiple different countries, so that's kind of a around the world type vibe. I tried to have some diversity of countries that I picked. I have 3 European countries, 1 Asian country, 1 country in the Middle East, and then the book that travels around the world goes to an assortment of different countries. So even though I've read books from other countries that I haven't mentioned in this video, I chose these books because they have a very specific sense of place. Like the setting is kind of a big part of the book, and there's lots of great descriptions and things that make you feel like you're there, because there's other books I've read that take place in another country, like Before the Coffee Gets Cold, for example, takes place in Tokyo, but nothing about the story screams Tokyo, screams Japan, because it takes place inside a cafe. So that's just kind of some of the reasoning into why I chose these books, is these books all paint a very vivid picture of the place that I'm talking about. So I'm going to be recommending 6 books that all take place in 6 different countries, and it's gonna be fun. So we are going to begin in Europe, specifically in London. So I've been to London a few times when I studied abroad in the UK last year, and I thought it was a great city and lots of great history and architecture, and just, it was awesome. So the book that I chose that gives a really great portrayal of London is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helene Hanff. But specifically, I want you to read the version that also has the sequel that she wrote to it called The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street. I'm pretty sure most copies of 84 Charing Cross Road also have this like mini sequel in it because it's a very short book. So I think a lot of versions include them together, but definitely make sure you read the second part because that is really where the descriptions of London take place. I actually picked this book up when I was in London last year, which is kind of a fun little tidbit. But this is a memoir from Helene Hanff, and it is a bunch of published correspondence between Helene and a bookstore in London that she built a relationship with all of the people who worked there. And the beginning of the book is basically just the correspondence back and forth between her and the used bookstore in London. She begins their relationship by asking them to send her a book, and thus begins a correspondence between her and the people who work there, and they all really grow to care about each other and love each other, and they all have a love of books that they share. And so the first part of the book, the 84 Charing Cross Road, is a cute little story and correspondence about friendship. But the Duchess of Bloomsbury Street, part 2, is the account of when Helene actually goes to London. So basically in the first part of the book, she talks about wanting to go to London for a really long time. And the second half of the book is when she actually does get to go. And it's about the people she meets. It's about meeting some of the people from the bookstore who she's literally written letters to for 20 years. And it's really, really awesome seeing her experience London, especially especially as someone who has like idolized London her whole life, and she finally gets to go and see all the different historical sites and literary sites, and she's just blown away. And so I feel like this is a really good representation of London, and she takes you through a lot of different places, and it was just a really good kind of snapshot of London, and it feels like you're there with her and you're traveling with her. I really liked the first half of this book, but I will say I think the second half was my favorite part. Really seeing her experience London and all the things that she did. I loved reading about that. So I think that that is a great, great, great little book, and it's very short and sweet, which, you know, I love a short book. So if you are feeling the urge to go to London, but you just can't afford the ticket right now, I feel you, first of all. Second of all, this book will do it for you. Okay, so you're already in London. Let's take the Eurostar to Paris. The city of love, the city of lights, one of the best cities in the world, I think. I've also been to Paris and I loved it. I went a few years ago when I graduated college. No, I've just graduated college. I went a few years ago when I graduated high school with my family, and we had a ball. It was so beautiful. I loved Paris. It's probably one of my favorite places that I've been. So the book that I have for this is Lunch in Paris, a love story with recipes by Elizabeth Bard. It's a memoir about Elizabeth Bard, who moves to Paris in order to be with her boyfriend, and it's about their love story, but it's also about her like falling in love with France and with French cuisine. So one thing I really like about this book is that there is a chapter that explains something about her moving to Paris. It explains her life in Paris and, you know, just kind of like her day-to-day. And then at the end of every chapter, there are recipes. So it's basically about her falling in love with a man, but also French cuisine. Relationships may be fleeting, but food is forever. I really like it because it's not like another book that might be set in Paris where she's like, I walked to the Eiffel Tower and stood and looked at it. Like all of those kind of basic things you would think of when it comes to Paris, but it's about her everyday life. It's about the streets that she walks down and the markets that she goes to buy her food. And it's about her learning how to adapt to the French culture, learn the French language. And yeah, it's a really great book. Plus there's tons of recipes. That's what all of these tabs are right here. These ones are desserts that I think are good, and these ones are meals that sounded good. If you are a foodie and you love Paris and want to go to Paris, this is the book for you. Okay, the last stop we are making on our European tour is Italy. Let's look at the cover of the book. The descriptions in this book of the town that one of the main characters lives in Italy is so like rich, and you just feel like you're there. You feel like you're feeling the sun and you're smelling the salt in the air, and it's a great description of Italy. So this book is, I can't even say it follows a specific character because it follows many characters, and it's about all of these stories kind of like weaving together, but it mainly follows a man named Pascal. He is an innkeeper, and one day this dazzling young American woman comes to his small town and stays in his inn, and he is like, wow, this girl, love her. It jumps back in time to the 60s, which is when Pascal's timeline is taking place, as well to the present day, and we learn that she is an actress, and so there's a lot of like old Hollywood vibes in this book as well, because this actress knows Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. So this is the story of an almost love affair that begins on the Italian coast in 1962 and resurfaces 50 years later in Hollywood. From the lavish set of Cleopatra to the shabby revelry of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival to the backlots of contemporary Hollywood, this is a dazzling yet deeply human roller coaster of a novel. So the book takes place in Italy, but it also, I forgot, takes place in Edinburgh for a portion of the story, and it kind of like really jumps around, but Italy is really like the vibes that you'll be feeling when you read this book. I would just say it's a story about like human relationships the most. And it's about not having regrets. In 50 years after something happens, you can still make things right and you can still have your happy ending. It has great descriptions of the Italian coast. Made me want to go so bad. We have finished our time in Europe, loved it there, but it's time to hop to a different location, and we are heading to the Middle East, to Egypt specifically, with The Last Watchman of Old Cairo by Michael David Lucas. So I actually just finished reading this book today, and I really enjoyed this book a lot. This book is another book that also has 3 different timelines that all kind of come together. And so one of them takes place back in like 1000 AD, and then also the 1800s, and then also present day. And all of these timelines take place in Cairo. So it's kind of interesting to see the differences between Cairo throughout all the centuries. But the descriptions of the city are really amazing. This is also a book that has a really cool cover where you can like see the city on it. So the book follows a young man named Joseph whose father has just died, and Joseph receives this package from his father after he has passed in the mail. And Joseph wants to know more about what it is, what it means, so he decides to go to Cairo to figure out what this mysterious package is, what it has to do with his family who have through generations and centuries been watchmen of this synagogue in Cairo, and what it has to do with this magical Ezra scroll that is supposed to be hidden within the synagogue. So that's kind of like a brief overview of what it's about. There's a lot of other subplots which are really interesting, but this book is also really descriptive and does a great job of making you feel like you are walking in the streets of Cairo throughout many different centuries. I just feel like it does a really good job of describing the Middle East in a way that is very like respectful and realistic and just very well done. And so this is a book that will definitely make you feel like you're walking the streets of Cairo if you are interested in heading over to Egypt. I will say seeing the pyramids is something that I really want to do. I feel like you can watch videos and see pictures of the pyramids all day long, but nothing will compare to seeing them in real life. Like, I feel like it's just insane. So I would love to go to Cairo one day and see the pyramids and just be in the city. Next up, we are moving away from the Egyptians and we are heading to China. So the book that I'm recommending for going to visit China is Dreaming in Chinese, Mandarin Lessons in Life, Love, and Language by Deborah Fallows. So I read this a few weeks ago in one of my 24-hour readathon videos, and I talked about in that video how this is one of the favorite books that I read from that experience. So this book takes place between Shanghai and Beijing, and it follows Deborah Fallows, so it's a memoir. Her and her husband move to Shanghai, and they also go back and forth between there and Beijing, and it's about them basically just like adapting to living in China, and it's about the culture shock, and it's about her learning the language. So the really interesting thing about this book is that each chapter she talks about a different facet of Mandarin and how that translates to the culture. And so it's really interesting to just like learn more about different people through their language, and that's something that I really liked about this book. But it also had really good descriptions of what living in these cities is like, and it's about her just kind of navigating life in Shanghai and Beijing. And it also talks about when she goes out into some rural areas of China, and there's just some great descriptions of China and the Chinese cities that she lives in. And so this is also like a really short book. I read it for my 24-hour reading video, so I read it in a few hours, and it was really good. I've been wanting to go to an Asian country whenever I travel next, and this book definitely did nothing to stop that desire. Okay, so those are all of the books for these specific places, but now I'm going to recommend a book that takes place in many different countries. All around the world. And that is Less by Andrew Sean Greer. So this is actually the book that pulled me out of a reading slump that I was in a few weeks ago, and so I appreciate appreciate it for that. But this book follows a man named Arthur Less, and his ex-boyfriend is getting married. So he doesn't want to go to the wedding because he's like, that will be awkward, but he also doesn't want to not go to the wedding because he feels like people will like be talking about him and be like, oh, that's so depressing. So he decides instead to accept a bunch of invitations to a bunch of different literary events around the world in order to have a good excuse for not going. He'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm out of the country, I can't go. So he is an author and he decides to go to all of these literary events, and they take him to Mexico, Italy, Germany, Morocco, India, and Japan. Each chapter of this book follows him in a different country, and it's about kind of him dealing with moving on from this loss and this relationship that has ended. So that's really what the book is mainly about, but the descriptions of the places that he's in and the people he meets in each of these different countries is also really well done, and you really feel like you're with him in the desert in Morocco, and like you're with him in Japan and Mexico City and so many other really cool countries. And so this book, this one hurts, guys. If you want to travel right now, this one will hurt a little bit. All of these books will probably hurt because you'll like read them and be like, I want to go there. This one definitely did it. I was like, I just need to drop everything I have and spend all of my savings and travel the world. Sounds good to me. Okay, you guys, those are my 6 recommendations for books to read if you have the travel bug and you just want to go somewhere but you can't right now, because I feel you, okay? We are in this together. We're all in this together. I get it. Let me know if you read any of these books or if you have read any of these books, because they are all really good and will all just transport you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up because that really helps the algorithm and it helps my channel, so I would definitely appreciate that. Also, comment down below what is the first country that you want to go to when you get the opportunity to start traveling. I would really like to go to South Korea. I think that's high up on my list right now, but so is Morocco, and I also really want to go to India. There's a lot of places I want to go, you know? Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future, and I will see you in my next one. Peace.